Hello, Virgo. The glass hit the table at 11:47 p.m. and did not break. That was the first miracle. The second was the sound that came out of them after the fourth shot of tequila stopped being a drink and became a solvent. A corrosive, a chemical agent specifically engineered to dissolve the adhesive they had used to hold their face together for the last 14 months. You were there. You were always there, weren't you? Either sitting across from them in a booth that smelled like stale popcorn and yesterday's perfume, or standing in your own kitchen doorway holding a dish towel you had long forgotten why you picked up, when the architecture of their performance finally gave way, their face crumpled, not like paper, like concrete, like something that had been load-bearing for too long and had finally, violently reached its stress limit. And then came the tears. Not the delicate, cinematic tears that slide down a cheek in a single photogenic track. These were the ugly kind. The kind that arrive with mucus and saliva and a sound from the throat that is more animal than human. They bent forward. Their forehead touched the table or your countertop or the steering wheel of the car you had agreed to drive because they were in no condition. Their shoulders shook with a violence that made you take a step back, not from fear, but from the shock of witnessing a structure implode in real time. You had seen them sad before. You had seen them frustrated. You had never seen them demolished. And in the wreckage of that demolition, something crawled out that you had been waiting for, without knowing you were waiting. The truth. It started with a laugh, a wet, broken laugh that sounded like a door hinge rusted shut being forced open. They said your name, or they tried to. It came out as a syllable and a half, a vowel stretched into a wail, and then, with the brutal efficiency of a drunk person who has lost all access to their internal editor, they began to confess. Not the polite, rehearsed confession of someone seeking forgiveness. Not the strategic confession of someone trying to get ahead of a story. This was an accidental confession. A chemical spill. The kind of truth that only emerges when the body is too saturated with ethanol to maintain the lies anymore. They told you everything. The first thing they told you was about the text message, the one they sent 3 months ago, or 6, or 9. Time becomes elastic in these moments to a mutual friend. A text that recast your vigilance as paranoia, your standards as control, your love as a cage they were trying to escape. They had painted you, in that message, with colors that do not exist in your spectrum. They had made you sound unhinged. They had made you sound cold. They had taken the most vulnerable thing you had ever handed them the night you admitted that you sometimes felt too much for people who felt too little, and they had weaponized it. They had shown that admission to someone else like evidence in a trial where you were not present to defend yourself, and then they had watched in the weeks that followed as that friend treated you differently. As the distance grew, as your name became a synonym for difficult in a circle you had once trusted, they watched it happen. They did not correct it. They let the lie breathe. They let it walk around wearing your face. You stood very still when they told you this. Your Virgo mind, that terrifying instrument of precision and recall, immediately cross-referenced the data. The strange look from the friend at the party, the canceled brunch, the way conversations had subtly shifted temperature without ever announcing the reason. You had noticed. Of course you had noticed. You notice everything. But you had filed those observations under unresolved rather than betrayal because you could not prove the source of the poison. Now the source was weeping into their own hands, admitting that they had been the manufacturer all along, but they were not finished. The alcohol had opened a valve that could not be closed, and the pressure behind it had been building for longer than either of you realized. They told you about the opportunity they had sabotaged. The job lead, or the creative collaboration, or the introduction that would have moved you forward, something you had mentioned in passing, something you had been excited about in that quiet, careful way you have, where you barely let yourself hope. They had known about it. They had had the power to help. Instead, they had planted a seed of doubt in the ear of the person who could have made it happen. A small comment, barely a sentence. They might be too much for this. They can be pretty intense. I'm not sure they're ready. They had dressed it up as concern, as protection, as the kind of gentle deflection that looks like love from the outside. But it was not love. It was envy. It was the small, sharp terror of watching you rise and realizing that your ascent might take you beyond the range of their grasp. So they had clipped your wings, not dramatically, surgically, with a precision that almost matched your own, used now for the opposite of care. They told you about the nights they spent with someone else while you were at home or at work or holding space for a crisis they had manufactured to cover their absence. Not a full affair, maybe. Or maybe a full affair. The details blurred in their slurred delivery, but the architecture was clear. There had been another orbit, a parallel track, a second stream running beneath the surface of the river you thought you were navigating together. They had washed the evidence from their skin before coming back to you. They had practiced their innocence in the mirror. They had looked you in the eye those mornings after and asked if you wanted coffee with a tone so clean it should have won an award. And you, being you, had believed the performance because you could not fathom that someone would work so hard to deceive you. Your mind does not naturally generate lies of that magnitude. You cannot invent fiction that cruel, which means you cannot detect it until it confesses itself. The tears kept coming. They were not asking for comfort. They were too far gone for that. They were in the grip of something older than the present moment, a flood of guilt that had been held back by a dam made of pride, and the dam had burst, and now the entire valley was underwater. They told you about the money, the small amount or the large amount, or the thing they let you pay for while they secretly had the funds to split it. They told you about the promises they made to themselves in your name, promises to change, to show up, to be better, that they had broken before the ink of the intention had even dried. They told you about the way they had resented your goodness, your actual cellular, unperformed goodness, the way you remembered birthdays, the way you showed up early, the way you fixed things without being asked. They had resented it because it made their own mediocrity visible. It cast a shadow they could not escape. And instead of rising to meet your light, they had tried to dim it, to smudge it, to convince you in 1,000 small interactions that your standards were the problem, that your attention to detail was obsessive, that your need for honesty was a personality flaw, They had tried to gaslight the sun into believing it was too bright. And the worst part, the part that came out in a howl that made the bartender look over, or the neighbors wonder, or the dog in the next room whimper in sympathy, was that they had known. They had always known. Every lie they told with full awareness that you were the wrong person to lie to, because you are not a casual observer of life. You are a forensic accountant of human behavior. They knew that you noticed the gaps. They knew that you felt the temperature drops. They knew that your silence was never empty, but always full of observation, and that every time they offered you a story that did not align, you filed it. You did not confront them immediately, because confrontation without proof is just noise, and you do not make noise. You waited, you gathered, you held the inconsistencies in your mouth like stones, waiting for the day when the weight of them would either be explained or would sink the whole structure. Tonight, they sank it themselves. They are still talking. Or they were, before the sobs took over and reduced their language to something pre-verbal, a repetition of your name, a clawing at your sleeve, a desperate attempt to make eye contact with a version of you that has not yet walked out the door. Because that is what you are doing, Virgo, even if your body has not moved. Some part of you is already leaving. Some part of you has been leaving for months, building an exit in the basement while the upstairs looked unchanged. You are not shocked by their confession. You are shocked by the volume of it. You are shocked by the sheer tonnage of malice that can fit inside a person who once claimed to love you. Not because you are naive. You are not naive. But because your own integrity is so absolute that you cannot fully inhabit the mind of someone who operates without it, you can observe it, you can catalog it, but you cannot feel it from the inside, which means you are always, in some small way, surprised when it reveals itself. The alcohol is not the truth teller here. Do not mistake the mechanism for the source. The alcohol was just the crowbar. The truth was already in the room. It had been sitting in the corner for months, growing heavier, growing sentient, feeding on the silence between you. The truth was the third entity in every room you shared. It was the weight under the floorboards. It was the smell you could never locate. And tonight, the truth stood up, walked over to the table, and introduced itself by taking their voice and using it to list every sin. You need to know what to do with this, because your instinct is already firing. Your instinct is to organize, to manage, to find the correct emotional response and deliver it with the appropriate timing. You are already wondering if you should comfort them, if you should say it's okay even though it is not okay, if you should fold this confession into the ongoing narrative of your relationship and find a way to make it productive. You are already looking for the lesson, the silver lining, the path forward that transforms this flood of poison into something you can drink and survive. Stop. This is not a problem to be solved. This is a revelation to be witnessed. And the witnessing requires a stillness that you have not yet allowed yourself. You are still bracing for the next sentence. You are still waiting for the confession to reveal its hidden clause, the part where they say, "But I did it because I loved you," or "I was scared," or "I never meant to hurt you." Those clauses are coming. They always come. They are the insulation people wrap around their cruelty to make it bearable. But you do not have to accept the insulation. You can hold the cruelty barehanded. You can let it cut you. You can let it bleed. because the blood is proof that you are still alive, still human, still capable of being wounded by betrayal, even though you spent years building armor against exactly this. Look at them. Look at the mess they have become in your presence. The mascara, if they wear it, running in tributaries down a face you once thought was beautiful. The hair, if it matters to them, plastered to a forehead that is slick with the sweat of detoxification. The hands that are reaching for yours, or reaching for the empty glass, or reaching for some object that can anchor them in a reality that has suddenly become unbearably sharp. This is the person without their mask. This is the person without their story. This is the person reduced to the raw, screaming fact of their own actions. And it is ugly. It is supposed to be ugly. If it were beautiful, it would be another performance. You are not required to forgive them tonight. You are not required to forgive them ever. Forgiveness is not the tax you pay for being told the truth. Forgiveness is a separate transaction, and it requires currency they have not yet earned. What they have given you tonight is information. Raw, toxic, necessary information. They have shown you the full inventory of their damage. They have confessed to the evil not because they are brave, but because they are cornered. The alcohol cornered them. Their own liver cornered them. The accumulated weight of their lies cornered them. And now they are trying to hand you the burden of their guilt and call it intimacy. Do not take it. Not yet. Not like this. Not while they are still drunk and you are still reeling. If you accept their guilt into your body tonight, you will absorb it like a sponge, and by morning you will be the one who feels heavy while they feel light. That is the Virgo trap. The trap of being so good at holding other people's mess that they walk away cleaner and you walk away stained. You have done it before. You have absorbed the toxins of people who claimed to love you and then wondered why your own skin started to break out in rashes of anxiety and insomnia. You are not a detox center. You are not a priest in a confessional. You are a person who was harmed, and the harm does not evaporate just because the harmer is now crying. But do not walk out yet either, not physically, not while they are in this state, unless you are unsafe. If you are unsafe, you leave. You leave immediately and you do not look back. But if the only danger here is emotional, then stay for the rest of the scene. Stay because you need to see it. You need to see what they look like when the performance ends. You need to see the exact dimensions of the person who was capable of doing those things to you, not because you are cruel, but because you are thorough. And thoroughness is how you protect yourself from ever being fooled again. They are going to pass out soon, or they are going to vomit, or they are going to fall into a sleep so heavy it looks like death, and you will be left alone in the room with the wreckage of their confession. When that happens, do not clean up. I know you want to. I know your hands are already reaching for the towel, the water, the blanket, the thing that will restore order to a space that has been violently disordered. Do not touch anything. Let the glass stay where it fell. Let the tears dry on the table. Let the evidence remain exactly where it was deposited. You need to see it in the morning with sober eyes. You need to see what the truth looks like when it is not dressed up in their charm, their promises, their carefully constructed narrative of being the wounded one, because that is what they will try to sell you tomorrow. When the alcohol has metabolized and the headache has arrived and the shame has started to calcify into something defensible, they will try to sell you the story that they were drunk, that they did not mean what they said, that they exaggerated, that their guilt made them dramatic, that some of those things were not as bad as they sounded. They will try to retract the confession like a defective product. They will say, I was in a dark place and I was projecting and I didn't mean to dump all that on you. They will try to turn their own honesty into your burden, making you feel guilty for making them confess or for not stopping them when they got too drunk or for taking it too seriously when they were clearly not in their right mind. Do not buy it. The alcohol did not invent those sins. The alcohol did not create the text message, the sabotage, the parallel track, the resentment of your light. The alcohol simply removed the lock from the vault where they had been storing the evidence. Those things happened. They happened sober. They happened consciously. They happened repeatedly. The tequila was just the subpoena. The tears were just the execution of the warrant. The crimes were committed in full daylight by a person who looked you in the eye and smiled. And now, in the aftermath of their collapse, you are going to feel something that might surprise you. Not anger, not grief, not even the vindication of having been right all along. You are going to feel a profound cellular loneliness. The loneliness of realizing that the person you thought was your teammate was actually your opponent. The loneliness of understanding that every intimate moment you shared was for them a dual screen experience where they were simultaneously present and managing the secret archive of their own betrayal. The loneliness of recognizing that you were alone in the relationship long before you were alone in the room. Let that loneliness have you. Do not fight it. Do not organize it. Do not turn it into a to-do list of self-care activities that will make you feel better by Sunday. Let it hollow you out. Let it echo. Let it teach you the exact shape of the space they occupied so that when you finally start to fill that space with yourself again, you will know what belongs there and what never did. You are going to want to call someone, a friend, a family member, a voice that will tell you that you are worthy of love, that this person is a monster, that you will get through this. You can make that call. But be careful. Be careful not to turn your pain into entertainment. Be careful not to let someone else rewrite the story before you have fully understood it yourself. The friend who says, I never liked them anyway, is not helping. The friend who says you should have known is not helping. The only voice you need right now is your own, speaking to you from the deepest, oldest part of your being, the part that existed before this person and will exist long after them. That voice is saying, I see you, I know this hurts, and I am not going anywhere. When morning comes, if you have stayed, you will see them in the light, and they will look different. Not because they have changed, but because you have seen them, really seen them. Without their mask, without their narrative, without the protective blur of your own hope, they will look smaller. They will look like a child who broke something valuable and is now waiting to see if they will be punished or forgiven. They will look at you with eyes that are searching for the old you, the you who would have already started cleaning up, already started problem solving, already started making the situation manageable again. They will be looking for the you who absorbs damage. And if you have done the work of this night correctly, that you will not be there. Instead, they will meet your gaze. And in your gaze, They will see something they have never seen before, a mirror that does not flatter, a mirror that reflects exactly what is there, no more, no less. And in that mirror, they will see the full, unedited, unforgiven image of what they have done. It will not be cruel. It will not be kind. It will simply be true. And the truth delivered without your usual softening, without your instinct to make things better, will be the most devastating thing they have ever encountered. Because you, Virgo, are the truth they have been running from. Not your anger, not your tears, your truth, your absolute, uncompromising, surgical devotion to what is real. They lied to you because they could not survive in the atmosphere of your honesty. They sabotaged you because your ascent exposed the mediocrity of their own choices. They betrayed you because intimacy with you required a level of integrity they did not possess and could not develop without doing the hard work they were unwilling to do. You were not too much, you were too real. And their confession tonight is the final, gasping admission that they knew it all along. What happens next is not up to them, it is up to you. And the decision you make in the next 48 hours will determine the trajectory of your next 5 years. If you accept their confession as a reset button, if you let their tears dilute the severity of their actions, if you move into the familiar rhythm of repair without requiring actual transformation, you will find yourself back here in 18 months. Different bar, different glass, same flood of poison, because a confession without consequence is just a rehearsal for the next betrayal. If, however, you use this confession as evidence, as the final piece of data that completes a file you have been compiling for too long, you will do something that terrifies them more than their own guilt. You will leave. Not dramatically, not with a scene. You will leave with the same precision you bring to everything else. You will gather your belongings or your energy or your investment, and you will withdraw it from the economy of this relationship. You will close the account. You will file the paperwork. You will make the exit so clean, so thorough, so completely devoid of the chaos they are addicted to, that they will have no script for how to respond. They will beg. They will promise change. They will send flowers or long messages or performative displays of growth that arrive just a little too late. You will witness all of it from a distance that is not cruel, but is absolutely final. Because the evil things they did to you were not mistakes, they were choices. And choices have addresses, they have return addresses. And the return address on every single one of those choices was their own self-interest, their own cowardice, their own refusal to become the person they would have needed to be in order to deserve you. You are going to be okay. Not tonight. Tonight you are going to sit in the dark after they have fallen asleep, and you are going to count the cost. You are going to inventory the damage. You are going to let your hands shake and your breath hitch and your heart break in the exact rhythm it needs to break in. You are going to cry if you have not already. Not the performative tears of the betrayed, but the deep, ancient tears of someone who has finally been shown the full map of a territory they thought was shared and has discovered that they were walking it alone while someone else was drawing false borders in the dirt. And then in the morning, or the morning after that, or the morning when your body finally agrees to release the last